Hi, I'm Tom Campbell, Director of the Metropolitan Museum, and I'm here in our European painting galleries to tell you about an exciting discovery we recently made in our own collections. I'm with Keith Christiansen, Chairman of our European Paintings collection, and Michael Gallagher, a Conservator in charge of our European Paintings Conservation Department. We're in a gallery full of Velázquez paintings. Keith, can you tell us a little bit about that collection?
Yeah, it's a collection that covers virtually all the crucial steps of Velázquez development. We have a picture from his Seville period. We have an equestrian portrait of the famous Count Olivares. We have one of the greatest portraits that Velázquez ever painted, Juan de Pareja, which was acquired by this museum in 1970, and a picture that won Velázquez's reputation in Rome in 1650 when it was publicly exhibited outside the portal of the Pantheon. And now we have a new portrait from the 1630s.
Now tell me about this. This painting came into the collection as a self-portrait by Velázquez, but over the years the attribution changed. How did that happen?
The picture can be traced back only to around 1800 when it was in a royal collection in Germany. 1917 it was published by the leading Velázquez scholar, August Mayer, as a self-portrait by Velázquez, and when it was acquired by the firm of Duveen in 1925, it was sold in 1926 to Jules Bache, who left it to this museum in 1949.
Still as a Velázquez.
Still as a Velázquez. It was then restored, and I think began its downhill trip to deattribution. Wouldn't you say,
why did that happen? What went wrong?
When August Mayer saw it in 1925 and described it, I'm sure he's seeing it in a clean state. We have in the paperwork that Devine sent it out for cleaning. He describes it very accurately as you see it today. But then it was restored with the market in mind, and everything that was sketchy, free, unresolved was suppressed. And there was a sort of attempt to turn it into a finished portrait. Rather thick varnish was applied.
It looked like gravy.
Yeah, exactly. And as the intervention that had changed the character became cruder, so did the painting seem to lose its quality in people's eyes, and it became a workshop. By 1979, the Met changed the attribution itself.
Yes.
What set off the new investigation?
I came here in 2005, and Keith and I had a walk through the galleries, and he said, you know, this portrait's always intrigued me. It seems far too good just to be generic workshop.
Michael's right, this picture has intrigued me for 20, 25 years, and I've walked by it many times, particularly after visits to the Prado, standing in front of the Surrender of Breda, where one sees the exact same sitter as in our portrait. You think, what's the scenario for our sitter accepting a workshop portrait of himself when he's important enough to be included in one of Velázquez's signature greatest compositions? We need to find more out about this.
Here we have this unidentified man who clearly relates to the famous figure in the Surrender of Breda, and you start working on it. What happened next?
I started to thin the varnish, and it was just very dramatic, the change. And I rang him about 2.5 hours later and said, oh, I think you really need to come up right now. And he sort of hung up immediately. And we were both very, very excited because parts of the picture, or portions that I'd feared were very worn, were in fact just very thinly painted, had never been taken to this high degree of finish.
Yeah.
And we suddenly thought, oh, this is a life study. This isn't a sort of worn portrait. This is a free...
finished.
Yeah, exactly.
And how long had you been working on it before I got the call from Keith saying, you've got to come right now?
It was all very short. I would say that one of the most remarkable things about all of this is the degree of the transformation, and in the 32 years I've been here, I don't think I've seen such a radical transformation by the mere removal of layers of varnish and repaint. And it's a testimony to the extraordinary subtle technique of Velázquez, who achieved so much with so little that it could be hidden so easily.
The thing that really hit me when we looked at it together was the extent to which the face is so finished. I mean, very spontaneous but finished. Everything else is just so sketched in. Now, I know that once you'd got to this point, you'd removed the varnishes. You called in
Jonathan Brown.
You called in Jonathan Brown, the great expert on Velázquez. What was his response?
I was expecting a drawn-out process. He came up, he bent over 5 seconds, said, no question who painted this, congratulations on the new acquisition.
So not a formal portrait, a studio study, exquisitely handled for the surrender of Breda. And who is it? This has long had an attribution as being a self-portrait.
Occupying a place on the margins, looking out at the viewer, this is exactly where artists frequently introduce themselves into their pictures.
But even in an event as important as this great historical moment...
That's the issue, and that's where Jonathan Brown quite rightly says, given the strict hierarchy of the Spanish court, the sense of decorum, Velázquez would almost certainly not have been permitted to introduce his portrait into a picture of this historical importance.
So this remains an open question.
It remains an open
Our public
question.
can come here
absolutely.
And try and make their own decision.
I think it remains incredibly intriguing.
Well, great. So often when I get those excited telephone calls, I fear it's going to be a very expensive purchase that I'm being pitched for. But on this occasion, we were discovering a new acquisition within our own collections.
That's right.
So, well, congratulations, both of you. Thank you. So there you have it. An exciting discovery from our own collection and a fascinating demonstration of the way that art history is an ongoing process, an ongoing dialogue between scholars, conservators, and the public. You must come and see the painting for yourself here at the Metropolitan Museum. Thank you.